Hey, it's Tina Lorraine, your certified abundant life, mind, and love coach. How you guys doing today? I hope you're doing fantabulous, wonderful, stupendous, lovely. I just wanted to jump on briefly today, guys. We're going to get a little serious. I have been talking about self-esteem, low self-esteem, while dating and having a background in sexual abuse. Like if you've been abused sexually and you're now dating. So I was talking about that on a couple of reels today. So if you didn't get a chance to see them, go check them out. But I'm coming on to do a bit of more of a detailed live because I just want you to understand something. We're going to talk about the things that no one wants to talk about when it comes to dating and sexual abuse. I'm going to read the statistics. I got my notes over here so I don't forget you guys. 1 in 3 female victims of completed or attempted rape experience it for the first time between the ages of 11 and 17. And that statistics come from the National Sexual Violence Resource Center. So a couple of things that we're going to talk about at this moment is when the sexual abuser or the predator is someone in the family. And not only has it happened once, but it has happened repetitively. So these are the things that sometimes don't get discussed in families that really need to be discussed because there's actually 2 victims. There's, of course, obviously the victim of the woman. And when I say woman, guys, don't become triggered like it never happens to men. The people that I mainly talk to, my audience, are women. But at the same time, if it has happened to you and you're a male, just flip the gender. All of this still applies, okay? So when we're talking about an attacker that's in the family and it happens repetitively, what happens to a woman's mindset when her attacker is in her family? And the first thing that happens is she gets victimized over and over again, because you have to think about this. You're interacting with someone who under, rape is not a normal circumstance, but under the average circumstance when a woman gets raped, she's not going to see her attacker anymore if it's a stranger, right? But when the attacker is in the family, she's going to be constantly interacting with her attacker, especially if the attacker is a brother, a father, somebody who's immediately in her family circle that she has to get up and eat breakfast with and socialize with and behave, in a familial way, like the brother or the father. Or even if it's a cousin or uncle, she still has to go to family gatherings and christenings and picnics and still has to interact with someone who has violated her in such an invasive way, who has taken away her voice, who has taken away her right to choose. She has to constantly be interacting with her attacker. So she's constantly being victimized over and over again. She gets objectified because, okay, let's talk about the mindset that comes out of this when you're constantly being victimized. The mentality that you acquire when you repetitively have to deal with your attacker on an ongoing basis in a familial setting is sexual objectification becomes your normal. You start to objectify yourself. Your mind starts to objectify because here you are having to interact with your attacker on a daily basis. So in some, that's going to become normalized. It's like your rape is being normalized in your mind when you constantly have to deal with your attacker on a daily basis and interact with him as a family member. So you're objectifying yourself. You're rehearsing your mind is telling you you're a victim, is giving you these victim mentalities, is victimizing you, of course, because you are a victim at that point, and you can't get away from it because you're always interacting with this person. So you might, because you're always interacting with this person because they're in your family, you're going to be struggling with that love-hate relationship, because generally speaking, this was not supposed to happen. Normally speaking, this is a broken person in your family that you're supposed to love. It could be your father, it could be your brother, it could be your uncle, and you're supposed to love this person, right? So you're going to be struggling with that love-hate thing, because it's like, I'm supposed to love them because they are related to me, but at the same time, they violated me. And if you're young, you're trying to make all this make sense, because most of these things happen, like I was saying, between the ages of 11 and 17, when young girls are getting victimized by someone, but not only strangers, but people in their family or people that they know. So you're asking someone who's still trying to develop their brains to deal with things that they shouldn't even have to deal with in the first place, to make it make sense. They're supposed to love their uncle or their father or their brother, but at the same time, they have all this hate for them because they've been violated, So they're trying to construct some kind of reasoning where this makes sense to them. So when it happens repetitively and they grow up in this atmosphere, you even when you're dealing with this on a day-to-day basis, how are you going to be able to forgive your attacker? Which is a part of healing, is forgiving. Even in this case, how are you able to do that when you're constantly in this person's presence? You're constantly interacting with this person. Most of us, we need time and space for somebody who hasn't even done something so as invasive as raping us. We need space just to forgive somebody for something they said to us, let alone something like this. So how is she going to be able to forgive or even start the process of forgiving her attacker, but forgiving herself? Because we struggle with that as sexual abuse victims. Even though we didn't victimize ourselves, we blame ourselves. And so we have to, at some point when we're starting to heal, to forgive ourselves. And how are you supposed to be able to deal with that when you're constantly in your attacker's presence, when your attacker is in your family, when your attacker is your uncle or your brother or your dad or your cousin? How are you supposed to have that space to even be able to process forgiveness? So then what happens is your subconscious starts to develop a toxic dialogue, and it centers around the hate that you feel, not only for your attacker, but you start to feel hate for yourself. Why? Because of course you would feel this way, because this is not normal. But you might not know it's not normal, and you might be fighting with that, and you might hate yourself because you're blaming yourself, because you figure there's something that's wrong with me, and this is why, this happened to me, when it's not true. But often as young children, we blame ourselves. When our parents divorce, we blame ourselves. When something happens, we blame ourselves. We're sexual victims, especially when they're young. They will blame themselves, and they will hate themselves, and they'll think that they did something to cause that rape to happen or that molestation to happen, especially if it's happening repetitively all the time. And because the victim is blaming herself for the toxic behavior of the family member. So because she's blaming herself for the toxic behavior of the family member, she starts to see herself as worthless. And this is where our self-esteem gets, attacked, because sometimes the victim in the family has told someone in the family, and the family kind of just poo-poos it away, or they don't deal with it. They just kind of try to brush it under the carpet, because again, these are things that we don't want to talk about in the family. We just want everybody to be normal, please, because we're all dealing with our own things and our own traumas, and we're paying the bills, and we're trying to make our toxic relationships work, and we're trying to raise these kids to the best of our ability. And so therefore, we don't need this to rock the boat. So we're going to sweep this under the table. So we're not going to act like this is happening. And after all, it's male behavior. It's not as serious as you say it is. It's all of that. So what happens to the victim in all of this when it's swept under the table like that? Again, she starts to feel worthless, because the family has swept it, has put it over in the corner in the closet somewhere. And so that's just kind of, again, reinforcing to the victim that it's their fault that it's happening. Because, it's the attacker is just explained as he's being a male, or maybe you did something, maybe you're acting too fast, maybe it's the way you did this, or you walked, or you dressed, and I just think you're a liar. I think you're just not telling the truth. That's why we're not going to deal with, we're just going to make like everything is normal and pretend like that just did not happen. And for whatever reason, I don't know why we do this as humans, probably to protect ourselves, but we try to just go on with life. But how is that going to make the girl feel? It's going to make her feel like she has no voice, no power, and that she is worthless. And if she never tells anyone in the family, and no one ever knows, then she's going to grow up being constantly attacked in this. If it happens repetitively, if the predator in the family has set up this succession of raping this girl over and over again, she is, if she never tells on her attacker, she's still going to develop those broken mindsets I just discussed, and she will internalize it, and it becomes her normal. Okay, so you have this scenario where, the girl tells on the person in the family, and it's just pushed under the carpet because no one wants to deal with uncle or dad or brother or cousin, because they either feel like it's just a male thing, male behavior, maybe because it happened to them in the past, or it happened with their brothers, or they're used to males acting this way, so therefore it's like it's just something males do, something you have to tolerate and just put up with it. Or they are not going to ever do anything about separating the attacker from the girl that it happened with. They're just going to continue to treat this person as if they're normal. They're not going to be held accountable. And so therefore the girl is going to feel like it's her fault. She's going to feel like she has no voice, no power, and that she is worthless. Okay, so this is what happens when we don't talk about these things, about the predators that might be in the family, because really it's two victims. It's the predator, because how did they get that way? How did somebody like R. Kelly get the way he is? It's because it's happened to him. Nobody checked him, so therefore he went out and did what was done to him, and just took it to a whole nother level. So that's what happens, it becomes generational things when we don't check it. Somebody needs to check it. Somebody needs to go, okay, you're going to go to jail, or you're going to get in a program. You're not going to be around this girl anymore, and we're going to have to get therapy for all parties included, and that's inclusive in this thing. That's what needs to happen, so it could get cut right then and there. But A lot of times it doesn't happen that way if the family knows. And again, if she doesn't tell anybody and just endures this over and over again until she gets a certain age and is able to move away, well, then she's internalizing all of that, and she's objectifying and victimizing herself over all these years. This becomes her mindset. This becomes the toxicity that she lives under. And then let's fast forward to a grown woman who is dating, who is now looking for love, who is looking for a soulmate, who is looking to get married, and she's dating. She has a broken mindset because it's never been dealt with. And this broken mindset looks normal to her, guys, because up until this point, her story is that she's basically worthless. She's a liar, a manipulator, because she enticed this dude that was in the family, who's grown, or who's, who knows better, who's never been dealt with, who's never been held accountable. So it's her fault. She's thinking it's still her fault. This is normal. She's objectified herself. She's come to normalize this toxic mindset as a victim because she's been victimized and no one has ever done anything about it. So now she's out here dating and will probably be attracted to men who are controlling, who are dominating, and she'll associate that controlling and dominant nature with love or being protective. Women want to feel like they're protected, but there is a difference from being protected versus dominated and controlled. And if you've been a sexual abuse victim, a lot of times that controlling, dominating man, a lot of times they call them alpha men too. It looks like love, and it's not. You're thinking that it's love because at a young age you've been dominated and your voice and your power was just snatched from you. And so therefore, as you've gotten older, of course you're going to be attracted to someone who's a controller, who's very dominating, because this is what you're used to. They might be verbally abusive. They might be physically abusive. They might be an emotional manipulator. They could be all these things or one of these things, but either way, they're all red flags. And you're going to associate it with love or protectiveness because that type of man has been normalized to you through your family and through your experience in your childhood. And then if that's normal to you, your intuition is not aligned to see game. Your intuition is not aligned to see game because your view of yourself is worthless. You don't have any self-esteem or worth, or you don't value yourself because you've never dealt with it. You don't even know a lot of times that you're a victim. Like you don't know that you're thinking from this victim's mindset a lot of the times. All you see is kind of the result of it. It's like a certain type of man that always enters into that you enter into a relationship with, and either it's a series of broken relationships or you stay in it, and it's just a series of abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, and you might be with a man who also rapes, as well. So the things that you need to do if you see yourself in this is, first of all, don't feel ashamed and don't judge yourself. We can tend as sexual abuse victims we build up this, because in that stage of when you start hating yourself, you start developing that very self-critical, you start criticizing yourself because you hate yourself. So everything, you're just very hard on yourself because you're blaming yourself for things that were not your fault. And so if you see yourself, if I've described you in this, let me just share this with you guys too. I was sexually abused by a family member, right? And when I was dealing with that, every time I saw him, my hate, and eventually my family knew about it, but my hate was so strong every time I saw him, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I just never reconciled it when I was young. I just grew up hating him. I couldn't stand to see a picture of him. I couldn't stand to hear his voice on the phone. I hated the fact that he was my cousin. I hated the fact that he was in my family. I just hated him and some of his siblings too, because they were doing the same thing. So that's what I'm saying, is that if you see yourself in this, first of all, do not judge yourself. Identify and acknowledge the mindset. Hey, this is me. This is me, and I need to do something about it, because I'm tired of being with these broken men. I'm tired of feeling dead on the inside. I'm tired of not feeling emotionally attached to anything or anyone. I'm tired of feeling this voidness, this emptiness on the inside. Okay, and once you have identified that this is toxic, that this is a broken mindset, you need to do something about it. You guys know I am not one to sit here and tell you, identify a problem and then tell you there's no solution. Wherever there's a problem, there is a solution. And guess what? God is putting everything you need inside of you. He's putting resources in your path, like me. So therefore, you need to do something. Once you know this is you, say, hey, Coach Tina, this is me, and I'm just tired. Okay, you need to get some therapy. You need to talk about what's going on, what happened to you. This is part of the identifying it and acknowledging it, is talking to a therapist, so you can kind of understand how you think and what you feel is normal and what lens are you looking through. You need to get a therapist, because you need to make sense of it and you need to reconcile it. And then as you're doing that, either as you're doing that or after you feel a little bit comfortable talking about it, get coaching. You need a coach like me to help you reprogram your mind, because you've been victimized. And if this has happened repetitively in your youth, you've been victimized over and over again. I don't even care if it happened one time, you've been victimized. But the fact that, and then if it happened one time and you never got help for it, you've just victimized yourself mentally over and over again as you've grown up, because your view of normal is not normal. And so therefore, a coach is going to help you to reprogram your mind. You see, your mind needs to be reprogrammed from victimhood to a victorious conqueror that you are. You have to be reprogrammed. Your mind has to be reprogrammed to feel worthy of the life that God has always intended for you. Because what your attacker has done to you is not what God intended for you. We sometimes think that these bad things or these toxic things that happen to us, somehow that God was a proponent in this when God wasn't. And so it's hard for us to look at God as an abundant God full of love and peace and joy and all these things that God is, when we attribute these sexual abuse, the rape, and all this to God, right? So you have to reprogram your mind to feel worthy of the life that God has for you, has always wanted for you. You have to reprogram your mind to value yourself and to know that God has always given you a voice and a choice. See, your voice and your choice was taken the moment that person violated you sexually, especially when you're young. You don't feel like you have a voice or a choice. And you need to reprogram your mind to align to love, so you can know that God has always given you a voice and a choice. You realign yourself to love and appreciate to self-love. This is another reason why you need a mind coach. is to realign yourself to self-love, to appreciate your uniqueness, your individuality, the things that make you you, your idiosyncrasies, the beautiful and unique way God has made you. You need to be able to reprogram your mind to align to that love. Because when you've been a sexual abuse victim, you're not programmed to love yourself. You're programmed to hate yourself. And you also have to reprogram your mind to align to the confidence. Think of God. Is God not confident in anything? You're a child of God. So you're supposed to be confident in your abilities and those talents and those gifts, in your living, in your moving, in your being. That has been robbed because, again, if you felt like you had no voice and no choice, your confidence is robbed. Your self-esteem is robbed of you if you've been violated in this invasive way, this violent way. It's all taken from you, and you walk around as a victim. And so therefore, yes, get therapy. I love therapists. But also get coaching so you can realign your mind to the good that God has for you, so you can believe it, so you can have it. You have to do this. These are the action steps that you need to take when you, hello Keisha, when you have been a victim of sexual abuse and your attacker is in your family. These are the steps you have to take. You have to identify the mindset, the toxicity, the victimization. You have to identify that, hey, I've been dating all these people, and all these people, this ain't working, or I have married someone who's a rapist, or I have married someone who's a controller. I have married someone who's dominating me, and I have all my life associated this with love, with somebody being protective, with somebody loving me, and that's just not the truth. But again, it's because we have dealt with this repetitively in our families with people who we're supposed to have a normal family relationship with, but yet we can't, because they have violated us in this way that God never intended for us to have to experience sex in such a violent manner, or things that are sexual. We're attaching very negative and toxic things to them at a young age. Remember, I said at the beginning of this, a lot of this happens between the ages of 11 and 19, and then you add on the thing that the attacker is in your family. It's just not something that is conducive to building a healthy adult. And this is why when we get older and we start dating, if it's never been identified, if it's never been dealt with, if that person has never been held accountable, actually it's two of you that are being held accountable. It's the victim, which is you, and it's the attacker that needs to be held accountable. If no one ever tells, nobody is being held accountable. And then if you tell and your family chooses to sweep it under the rug, then where is accountability? Because you're not getting the help that you need as the victim. You're not getting the therapy, and the attacker is not getting held accountable. Because that attacker needs to be in jail, needs to be getting therapy, needs to be in a program, because there's something going on with them too. So you, as the victim, I'm speaking to you, get the coaching that you need to help reprogram your mind. Yes, get the therapy, but also get the coaching to reprogram your mind from victim to victorious, which is what I specialize in. So we can realign to confidence. We can realign to our high self-esteem. We can realign to the way God made us to be, the identity God has given you. So that could become your normal instead of being the victim, victimized through victimhood because someone has been, sexually violating you all of your life. Okay, so that's all I got for you today, guys. check out the reels for today and re-listen, catch this on the replay, and let me know, schedule your private discovery call with me. I am a mind coach. I can help you in this area. I shared my story of how this affected me when I had someone in my family do this to me repetitively and how I felt. I know the road to healing. I know the other side of it. I know what victimization feels like, but I also know what it's like to be victorious. So, and you have to get your mind right. Therapy is good. You have to talk about it, but you also have to take some action steps to not, continue to live your life as a victim. And so that is what I'm here for, and I will see you soon, and I will be talking to you soon, okay? Have a lovely, wonderful day. Bye-bye.